Don't worry about it. Go after what you're passionate about. If you really, truly love something, you go for it.
It doesn't go away, actually. It's just like training yourself to understand, okay, that emotion is just fear and anxiety. You got to flip it to make it excitement and say like curiosity.
You have to always be looking forward, have forward thinking.
Exactly. I love that. Like when one door closes to an opportunity, like you will remember that there's other doors that you can go walk through.
A support system is so key.
Hi, semua MTFers. So, pagi ini, I'm going to be talking all in English because I have my friend that is joining this episode and we're going to be chatting with her a little bit. So she is here for 2 weeks in Indonesia, first time in Indonesia. She's an actress, a rising actress. And we're going to talk about her chasing her dreams, how she's been tackling them, the sacrifices she's made, and her experience here in Indonesia. So, MTF, we've been away for a little bit, but now we're back and hopefully you'll see us soon. So I guess welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So maybe first things first, please like introduce yourself. Who are you and a little bit about your story.
Okay. Yeah. I'm Emily Ashby and I am an actress and rising producer, I should also say too as well in the industry. And a little bit about me, besides acting for film and now venturing into producing, I also did theater. So I started as a theater kid.
Okay.
Like a lot of us have as actors, you know, a lot of us are theater kids. And so I started, that was my first gateway into what is acting, you know, what's that like? Musical theater.
How old were you?
Well. I was, I think, about 6 years old. So,
wow.
Yeah, I started quite young. It was actually a part of my academics.
Okay.
So we would do a play annually every single year. And I was a soprano. So I would sing too as well. And so that kind of got me my start. So every single year we would have a play that our school would do together.
So that was your start. And then how did you end up where you are now?
Well, so after theater and after, high school and going on to the university with theater for me, I was never that child that was like, hey, I'm going to go out for the lead role. Like I really got this. I always wanted to go out for big parts, but I was afraid in the audition room. And I was afraid on the stage.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I would get stage fright. I would like look out at all the people and I'm like, oh, that's too many people looking at me. Like that actually truly scared me. So I never went out for the big parts because of that. I was afraid of that. But I loved being a part of the play.
Okay.
So I really thoroughly enjoyed that. So I thought, you know what, maybe it's not for me.
Okay.
You know, maybe this whole acting thing, it's not for me. I didn't really enjoy that. And so then I went out to the university, but I was always artistic. And I was like, what else can I explore? So I explored fashion design. I explored fine arts, writing. I thought maybe I'll write a book, you never know. And also psychology, because I was always interested in the human mind.
Yeah.
By the way, one of my favorite series, like psychology related, is Mindhunter.
Okay.
Lately, I watched that one. That one's phenomenal. So I explored all those things and dietitian because I also love nutrition and fitness. And
so you just had so many interests and curiosities.
Yeah, curiosities. I was like, well, what about this? What about that? Let's explore that. Let's see if I like that. And that kind of philosophy actually went into how I found film acting. So I kind of just went off. I was doing my thing, exploring all these things. And I was reading this book series, and it's a fantasy-based book series called Red Queen. I was reading this series and I was just thinking, I was like, if they made a movie about this, what character would I be?
Yeah.
And as I'm analyzing all these characters in this book series, I was like, what character would I be?
Yeah. And
then that got to me like thinking, well, what about film? What about like acting for movies? Because I explored theater, didn't love the stage. What about acting for movies? And I was like, I don't even know where to begin.
And what, like, that was before college, after college?
After college, right around the time I was still in the university or just completing the university.
Okay.
So, yeah. So And then I decided, you know what? I got to figure this out. I had no idea where to go. I reached out to an actor that I knew and I was like, well, how do you start film acting? You know, what's the process of that? And so they suggested, like, well, get into some acting classes and see if you like it. Kind of similar to my exploration of all the different things in the university. And so I got into some acting classes and I was like, I don't know. Let's find out if this is for me, right? And I just loved it. I just freaking loved it. It just like, I found my niche in doing for the film, because I think film is so different than the theater. The theater's great for acting, but film, you're in kind of more a, you don't have this massive stage. You don't have to worry about a bunch of people watching you. Granted, eventually they will, right? Yeah. Totally different. And I felt it was my safe space. Okay. To really just focus on acting and performance.
So you had completed your university and then you decided, okay, I want to explore acting. And the thing is, a lot of people want to go into entertainment, creative route, right? But they don't necessarily take the plunge. Like, I mean, speaking from experience, you are, at least for me, I was raised to go to college, then, you know, get a good job, go the safe route, the path well taken and like frequently taken, you know what I mean? So that my parents knew how to guide me. They knew how to define success. There was a lot of risk, especially because I was an entrepreneur, but being an actor, like the success rate for actors, you know, it's tough. And I'm sure it was very like nerve-wracking because you were going into this new path. But like, what made it in your heart? You were like, nope, I'm ready to give up like what I know and go into this path of, you know, very much said the unknown.
You know, and part of like my personality has always been kind of similar to yours, and your entrepreneurship has always been hey, if you like it and it makes you happy, just go for it, you know, and take away the fear. I think the biggest thing is we're always fearful. At first I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to figure it out, right? But a lot of that exploration is why we get good at things, right? Is because we're willing to take the risk and get rid of the fear of whatever, you know, that fear is, you know, caused by, right? Are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid that you're not going to be the image that you want people to see you as? Like, what is that fear and why is that holding you back? So I think for me is I had to recognize in myself, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Go after what you're passionate about. If you really truly love something, you go for it. And you don't worry about failure, because failure truly is not trying, and in my opinion. So I think once I released that and I didn't care anymore about what, you know, we consider a fail, and look at it in a progressive way of everything's a success. If you have an opportunity and you go after that opportunity and you don't get that opportunity, you're not any further away from where you were already. Yeah. You've only given yourself a potential opportunity. And if that's not the right one, then move on to the next one, because something will be.
No, I love that. I love how you're saying, don't let fear be the driver for your decision making, basically, right? Because I feel like even at this age, I get scared and make decisions based on the data that is like my fear and my hesitation. It doesn't go away, actually. It's just like training yourself to understand, okay, that emotion is just fear and anxiety. You got to flip it to make it excitement and say like curiosity, right? So it's like about perspective almost.
Yeah. And like you're saying, like it's a constant process. Like you don't just get rid of that just because now you're an adult and now you have maybe a little more security. You have to constantly be thinking about your mindset and not allowing yourself to go into that mindset of being fearful to take those risks.
So do you think that now you still have that like fear or, you know, that nervousness for the future?
Oh, all the time.
All the time.
All the time. It doesn't go away, you know. at the end of the day, you know, you're taking risks constantly, especially in the film industry. And you don't know if that's going to drive further success for you or not. You know, a lot of it is it's a bit of a gamble. You know, you're rolling the dice and you're hoping for the best. And at times that can be nerve-wracking, right?
So when you say like, okay, I'm taking a gamble, essentially you are gambling your security, or you're leaving your security behind for this big payout, or like for this big success. And I'm sure like taking any type of gamble requires sacrifices. Like, and you're sacrificing security, you're sacrificing knowing what's going to be, you know, your next year, your 5 years from now, because every single project just evolves as time goes on as well. And you evolve as an actor as well, right? So like, can you share some of the sacrifices you've made, and what are the sacrifices individuals actually need to make to reach success or to reach any dream that they want to have?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sacrifice as well. Right now, I'm sacrificing a stable career for doing full-time acting and producing, which of course is always a little bit scary because you don't always know, right? But then I also say, that also allows you to take that energy that you have every single day to put towards getting more success in that. And that's really important too as well. So yeah, it's a bit, you know, nerve-wracking. That's a big sacrifice.
Can you tell us like maybe like a personal sacrifice that you've made in the past 10 years on this journey that you're like, at the moment, it's huge for you and you are really on a crossroads? Because I feel like a lot of individuals, their biggest growth is usually when they have this crossroads between, you know, continuing on their path and staying stagnant, or taking this risk and risking falling. But how have you, you know, experienced that? Like your personal sacrifice? Like, give us an example.
Personal sacrifice. I have a fun one actually, because for an opportunity, especially as an actor, is oftentimes we have to take some good potential opportunities, and sometimes they're not always at the best time, right? As far as when they're scheduled, right? And so, for instance, I took a film right before my wedding day. So it was literally going to be the entire month before a wedding, and we were doing a wedding.
Your wedding.
My wedding. And I had to make the choice of, do I take this? It's not the best time. It really is not the best time. We have a lot going on. We have a wedding to plan. And, you know, you don't always know the opportunities and where those opportunities are going to lead. And sometimes you have to go for it. And luckily, I have a very supportive husband that was like, go for it. Do it. We'll make it work. Don't worry about it. So that is a big sacrifice because it was a little bit chaotic. I had to fly in for one day to get my wedding dress fitted, and it was a lot going on at the time. But I'm so grateful that I took that opportunity, and that opportunity is going to lead to more and has led to more. I think that's also really important to know, that sometimes it's not always going to be the most ideal time. Sometimes it's not going to be the most ideal circumstance that you're in when you take these opportunities. It's a very glamorous industry as we all see it, but the glamour and what's actually the process of making some of these films, it's not always glamorous. It's not easy. It's grueling. It's tough work that you're putting in, and that does require sacrifices, and that requires the ability to be very fluid and just go for it, right? And not be like, oh, it needs to be perfectly scheduled or anything like that, you know, because that's not how the film industry works. So yeah, it really requires that.
You have to be agile and just and just to adapt.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's someone who is a true like go-getter. You kind of mold yourself into what is needed for the opportunity, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that does, it requires a lot of sacrifice to just go for it like that. And also sacrificing time. There's a lot of commitment when it comes to the industry where you have to put a lot of time, and sometimes you feel that you don't get a lot out of some of the time that you put in.
Yeah.
It's sometimes small movements, and you're like, no, I want things to go. I want things to move. And so it does require a lot of dedicated time where you just have to set that aside to really pursue what you want to pursue, and or preparation for a film as an actor. A lot of that. So I think there's a lot of
preparation. I mean, like on the way here, I was getting some diet tips from Emily because I was like, your body is like flawless. Like
Stop.
no, seriously. And I was like, how can, give me some tips, diet tips, nutrition tips. And you were saying how you hardly eat that much sugar. And I'm like, honestly, that's a sacrifice.
That is another sacrifice, I will say too. And a lot of actors will feel the same as like, because you have to be prepared for whatever on-screen presence that you're going to have. And diet and exercise is a huge factor in that. And, sometimes people think, oh, they might have just been born with it. No, guys, I'm in the gym at least 6 days a week. I work really hard to try and keep up with fitness, dietary. I've had some splurges in Indonesia, but that's okay.
Because I've been feeding her well.
She's been feeding me so well. And I've had a lot of delicious treats too as well. So, of course, I've made sacrifices on my sugar just to enjoy some things. And that's okay too. You don't have to be like perfectly strict all the time. You have to enjoy life. But it does require the sacrifices, right? The time, the commitment in the gym, eating healthy, all those kind of things.
So Emily, do you ever feel pressure either like financially or emotionally, even mentally to maybe call it a day and just go to like an easier route? Because I feel like entrepreneurship, which I'm very, very fluent in, right? It's hard work and it's emotionally draining, and you find that you are so attached to the success of the business. When the business does well, your mental state does well and you're happy and you're joyful. But then when the business doesn't do well, then, you kind of shatter your own perspective on like how things are going in your life. Even if you have outside achievements, right? You kind of equate who you are to your business's value and worth. And I'm sure like as an actor, it's even closer to you where you are your success and your failure. Like you're so close to that. And it's just so much easier to be like, you know what? Like I can't handle the pressure. It's too much for me. Like, how do you manage that?
And I love that you bring that up because at times, sometimes people don't realize, except for, talking to other people, how much that is a thought process that everybody has in the industry is, it's a difficult industry. You're constantly being told no way more than you're told yes. You're constantly, having to deal with that and face that, as well as, when you have a film release. Yeah. Me as an actress, I do feel that if the film doesn't do well, you are a part of that film. Yeah. And it's exciting every single time you get a film release because you're like, oh, what's the audience going to think, right? And if it's not well received, you're like, that is a bummer. That is hard to take in. But I think the mentality, and this is a constant process, like we've talked about, is you have to always be looking forward, have forward thinking, and not put your eggs so much in that basket and that success of that particular film, because we're constantly going to be taking a new film on a new risk. And we don't know. We might actually make something we feel is so great. And we're like, everyone's going to love it. And then they don't. They don't. And you don't know how the audience is going to receive it. It is a gamble. All, Hollywood, they put out, multi-million dollars into these projects, and sometimes they're not successful at all, right? And so that's a constant part of the process. So how we think about that. And there are times where I feel like, oh, I'm failing at this. Like, why am I in this industry? Yeah. That is so difficult. It is difficult emotionally. You're constantly having to stop and do your affirmations of, what are you worth? Knowing your qualities are worth something.
So that helps you.
No, so much, but it does. It really does. You have to be so grounded, I think, in who you are as a person, and what you have to give is so original and so unique. And that might not be perfect for one story, but it's perfect for another story, and having that mental process and really have that grounding. But I also think a support system is so key. When you have good friends and you have good support and great minds think alike, and how you surround yourself with people is really important. Because those people are there to lean on when you feel like I failed, I'm not doing what I should be doing, should I be in this? And they can provide that encouragement when you need it, because we all need encouragement. Like, we're not like perfect. Like, I'm, happy and I'm telling myself I'm worth everything, but I don't feel it. Yeah. Right. I think it's also okay to lean on people and say, encourage me. Let's let's build ourselves up to as well.
So you're saying that you have gone through failure.
Oh yes.
How has that influenced your growth and like how you see life now?
It's influenced my growth, especially because I had to rethink how I viewed failure. Because we all feel that failure isn't a success, but I view failure as you tried for an opportunity that you didn't think you were going to try for in the first place, and you put yourself out there, and that's actually not a failure. That's not a failure because now you've been seen, and now you don't know what that opportunity actually could lead to in the future. And I've had times where I thought, oh, I didn't get it,
Yeah.
And then later on, somehow I'm contacted and that person remembers me. You never know what each encounter is going to bring. So I think what's really important is, how do you view that? That was an opportunity. It's not a failure. You had an opportunity. It didn't go well. You're going to move on to another thing. There's always going to be something next that you can pursue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I was telling you about my daughter too, right? The other day, she had tried out for a play and she didn't get like one of the main roles. She got a supporting role, and she came home and she was like, I'm quitting. I'm not doing this. And she, by the way, she's 13 years old, right?
And she's adorable.
She's 13 years old. And I was like, baby, like, you are 13. This is not the time to quit based on one failure. Like, you need to know that all the time you try, you're not always going to be the best, right? You're not always going to have the main role, but you still got to put yourself out there and like raise your hand, get people to see you. And through that process, you're going to learn. Yeah. But I don't know. I just feel like that's so, what you said is so true. Like, you need to keep going and going and going. And over time, you get braver and braver and braver too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was even talking to her. I said, I know you thought that role was the perfect role for you. And I know you thought you were the best version of that. But that director has a story in their mind, and they've already had that story. And maybe somebody walked in and that other person was exactly what they had already pre-thought for their story of the version they want to tell. And there was nothing that you could do to manipulate that. Just who you are as a person is different than the other person is, right? And they might just encompass whatever je ne sais quoi that character needs. And that's the thing where we need to stop and realize there's so many other personalities that they just might be perfect for the role, and that's okay. That's all right. And you're going to be perfect for another role. There's going to be just something, your personality, you encompass, you align with.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Like, when one door closes to an opportunity, like, you will remember that there's other doors that you can go walk through.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And the other thing we talked about was, don't sell yourself short. Don't. I experienced that growing up when I was not secure enough in myself when it came to theater. And I was afraid to go for some of the bigger roles that, I should have. And I think sometimes people, they underestimate themselves.
Yeah.
They think, oh, I'm not ready for this, right? But you're not going to know you're not ready until you try and you really put yourself into those shoes.
So it's sort of like self-rejecting. Like, we don't allow ourselves to dream big because we don't want anyone else to reject us.
Yeah.
Rather, let's reject ourselves and don't open ourselves to that kind of opportunity so that we don't walk away with that heartbreak, right?
Yeah.
So we that's a coping mechanism, I think, right?
Yeah.
And we do open ourselves up, and we are vulnerable when we try to go bigger, and there is risk of failure, but the payout can be so much better too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The payout is bigger when we risk bigger, but there is that fear of, oh, now I really put myself out there. So if people don't like me, then it's really going to be, and playing it safe. But we're really our own worst enemy when it comes to our goals and achieving our dreams, because we're our biggest self-critic.
Oh my God,
we're the biggest critics in the world. We're worse than Rotten Tomatoes on ourselves. We're giving ourselves like a 0% score, and we're like, let's fix this. And rather than just let's go after things. And
got it. 100% agree. So now you've been to Indonesia, first time here.
Yes.
You've been here for 2 weeks. So you've explored, some business meetings. You've also done the Bali trip, some vacation, some relaxation, massages, shopping. Tell us your experiences. How have you liked our country?
Well, first of all, I feel so happy here. I'm like in the jungle, This is my kind of vibe when it comes to weather, and I just love Jakarta. Jakarta is like the New York City in the jungle. The people here are just so incredibly, I feel, authentic and nice and happy. And I've just,
what surprised you the most here?
I think just the happiness that I've seen from people with even sometimes minimal, in the sense of just being happy with not having huge things. Coming from the film industry, we have such huge aspirations, but even just how happy people are with a more simplistic life and less. And I love it. It's a good perspective to have that. And I really like the vibe of people. Everybody's just so friendly.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of feedback that we get from other parts of the world, especially from Europe, where a lot more coldness in some countries, right? Yeah, but I feel like Americans are very friendly too, so that's why we kind of jam and we vibe very well. Our energies are about collaboration or about communication, and we love that, right? What's one thing about, I guess, Indonesian youth that has shocked you? Or what's the difference between Indonesian youth and in the States?
What was crazy is my first week here, I was approached by 2 young gals that were in the university, and they came over to me and they were like, hey, so we're having this female empowerment group that we've started ourselves, and we're going to do this whole, band and all this thing. And we just really want to create a great group of young women that support other women. And I was really taken aback by that. Such young personalities that just want to, drive this change and make a group of support. That's so wonderful. To see that and that. In such a young society, just wanting to have a female empowerment group. Yeah. That I don't see that in the States. That's...
Yeah, there's a lot of, especially in the young people, there's a lot of activism, and they really have strong opinions that they want to share. And I definitely appreciate that. And I feel like different ecosystems definitely welcome that too.
Yeah.
What do you think that we can learn from, say, Americans? What can we... share some of the insights that you can offer.
Oh, from Americans. Yeah. I mean, well, you have a unique perspective because you've seen both angles. Well, Americans, I would say one great thing about our society is our driven attitude of getting things done. I've always heard this actually from other perspectives of other countries saying Americans are work heavy, work hard, go, go, go. They're overworked, which is, that's kind of true. But that attitude of let's get stuff done, let's seize the day. Let's go for it. I think that is a great attitude that can be, just other countries in general. But I sense in Indonesia especially with you and your company and everything, a very entrepreneur mindset of let's, develop businesses. Let's, create a lot of things. So I feel like there's actually kind of a similar wavelength between American society and Indonesian too as well.
Yeah, I feel Indonesians are super resourceful.
Yeah.
And they're very entrepreneurial. I mean, there's a lot of small, medium businesses that are the backbone of Indonesian economy. So very much so where entrepreneurship is viewed as, a very valid occupation, right? So it's very much welcoming. There's ecosystems, there's communities that support that. Rather than, I feel like when I grew up in the States, we went to university to kind of work for corporate America. And so that's how I view a little bit of difference. But like you've now been through a few meetings with some of the Indonesian filmmakers and producers as well, and you're very excited to collaborate with them. So like, what's the most excitement that you feel from the industry here compared to, say, US?
I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I think that there's more of a, like you're saying, even with the businesses and the entrepreneur mindset of collaboration. I feel like that's a bit lacking. I feel like in America in general, people tend to like hold cards close and they don't want to help each other.
Yeah.
There's a lack of wanting to create a society and a network of helping each other out. And, you know, my success and you being successful is also a success to me, that kind of mindset. Versus here, totally different mindset when it comes to those things. And I think that America could actually learn from Indonesia as far as that goes.
Yeah, the concept of community and like really collaborating with each other rather than competing.
Yes.
Because if we are part of one ecosystem and we bring it up, that means everybody's kind of a winner.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to see that. And I feel that's why it was very much easier for me to come back to Indonesia, because everybody's open, welcoming, very adaptive to our insights as well. I have a question. Now, coming back to kind of your experience, right? It seems like when you decided to go into acting, you had a huge dream, a huge vision for yourself. And it can be overwhelming for young women, especially graduating from undergrad. They wanted to maybe not even go into acting, but they want to start a business or they want to be a politician, right? They have a huge dream, but they feel overwhelmed where they feel almost suffocated. Like, what would your advice be? How would they start? How should they shift their mindset?
I feel that, you know, if a woman feels stuck, I mean, we've all felt that, you know, and I felt that too as well. You know, where do I go? Where do I go from here? You know, and I think the mindset should really be what could be the potential, right? Rather than feeling like you're not moving, what other elements have I not even searched out? What, you know, other aspects of, say, the film industry have I not explored? You know, if I'm stuck here, you know, I'm acting and there's no projects happening for, you know, a while.
Yeah.
How can I create opportunities for myself to better myself? In this time, whether it be, let's try and actually try and create some projects, even if it's a small project, a short film, you know, whatever it may be. How can I create something and still be exercising my artistic abilities during a time where not a lot is happening?
Yeah.
Can I explore new things? You know, maybe I haven't thought of singing before, and maybe I could explore that and see, you know, if that's a venue or an avenue of, you know, something I could do. You know, what can I work on? Maybe voice acting if you haven't thought of acting for animations, or exploring new things that are still in the artistic realm that keep you mentally active. I think is really, really important.
But how about for women outside of the film industry where they have big dreams, but they just feel overwhelmed by how to start because their dreams are so high?
I will say, I think it's so important to dream big. I think sometimes people, like I said, we've talked about, people limit themselves and they don't make their dreams big enough because they're afraid that those dreams are going to be too big for them to accomplish. And I always think if they're not big enough, then how are you ever going to accomplish something big, right? That mentality is very, very important. But feeling overwhelmed with, I want to accomplish such big things and I don't know how to do it. I feel that that's where we all start in the industry. We all start with these massive, big dreams, and we don't know how to accomplish those dreams and create that path for ourselves. And a lot of that overwhelming is, I don't know what to do next, right? And finding a way. And that's where I think also leaning on your network group, that's why it's really important to have a network group of people that you can rely on and reach out to and talk about these things and what worked for you. What's a direction I could go, I could explore. Everybody's route is going to be so different.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation the other day with an actor. You know, somebody might take this project and boom, and they end up at the Oscars, right? You know, we don't know what some of these gambles, these projects are going to lead to, right? It's all a different direction. Nobody's going to have, there's no perfect path for an actor. Right? It's all about taking opportunities as they come. But I think it's like if you feel stuck and you don't know where to go, that's when we rely on a network and we can reach out to each other. And I think it's really important. I'm always an open person when it comes to if somebody reaches out to me and they need help, they need direction, I take the time to just let's talk about it. Let's talk about what do you want to do and how can I help support you in my network of what I've created as well. Maybe there's something that I can help with, right? To help create that direction. But also when it comes to feeling so overwhelmed with these big dreams is that mentality that we talked about is like, what do you view as success? Because oftentimes when we set our dreams so big, I thought I was going to be a big, in the big, huge Hollywood productions a year out of starting acting. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this, right? And that path isn't always going to look the way that we thought of.
Yeah.
Right? That path can change different directions. And we got to be fluid and go with, whatever that flow may be. And that could lead to our ultimate success. But I think, the overwhelming, lean on people.
Lean on people, your support system.
Yeah, I think people are afraid to say, I think people want to be so strong all the time.
Yeah.
They don't want to say, oh, I actually need help. I actually need some encouragement. I actually need some support.
Yeah. Actually, vulnerability is a strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is next for you, Emily? Like, what are you excited about?
Well, I'm excited about a lot of things. Some things I can't really talk to yet, but I have a lot of projects in the works. As I'm venturing into producing, I actually am tied on to produce my uncle was in the Olympics, so his biopic. And I'm very, truly excited about that. That's a family legacy, as well as several other projects I can't really talk too much to. And some other projects in the works that I can't quite talk to as far as me acting into
so
as
more
well.
Acting,
but
more projects.
acting. Yeah, more projects. I'll be heading to LA the end of the month to do some filming. And so lots of great things in the works and great things that we have to talk more about.
For
that,
sure.
We're not going to say anything about yet. But definitely some big things coming.
Well, I hope you become a familiar face in Indonesia. Well, you're welcome anytime. And I'm excited to have you here today at MTF, as well as in Indonesia, in Jakarta. Hope you enjoy. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
having
having
me.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Woman Talk.